Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I know we are so excited to have such a respected voice in the field of coaching and professional development with us today. Just a quick bio about Diane before we jump in. With roots stemming as a teacher and coach in the Denver public school system, Diane is an educational consultant and author. To name just some of her work, she is the author of Student-Centered Coaching from a Distance, The Essential Guide for Student-Centered Coaching, and you can now pre-order her new guidebook, Moves for Launching a New Year of Student-Centered Coaching. Diane, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks. It's a treat. I'm glad to be here.
And so I have just a couple questions and then want to leave some time for people to ask questions in the chat. So make sure to put your questions in the chat for Diane as we discuss some of the things we're here to talk about today. Jim and Selena kind of alluded to this, and I know that we're all living it and feeling it, but this kind of climate and this whole the whole world is different. And after 2 years of disruptions, just wanted to get your thoughts about like, what is the current state of instructional coaching from your lens?
I think we are all really looking forward to starting this next school year is what I'm feeling as I interact with coaches around the country. I think there's a feeling of hopefulness and a restart. And that always feels really good. It always feels good for educators. Starting the year for us is like New Year's Eve. I mean, it is like, yes, it's, this is how it's going to feel. And I'm feeling energized. And so I do feel pretty darn excited for the new year. I do think that some of the things that coaches have experienced, obviously, over the past few years with the disruption have really, I think, reminded us of the importance of deep, deliberative, quality partnerships and work with teachers. And when a coach is pulled out to sub for classrooms all the time, and to just suddenly help teachers learn how to teach online, who've never signed up to be online teachers to start with. And you have this just real erosion that happened with the coach's role, and nobody signed up for all that stuff. And so the question, I think, is just how do we really have a start to the school year that returns us to why we do this work in the first place, as teachers, as coaches, as principals even.
Yeah, I think like I'm sure a lot of people in listening are really lighting up hearing you. Of that is exactly their experience of just being totally gotten different assignments, being subbed, and just doing a lot of things that they didn't sign up for. But it's part of the gig. You kind of alluded to this of like this excitement about starting the new year and this refresh. And it's definitely something that I felt as an educator. Do you have any advice for, those coaches that are with us today about what are those things that they can do to start the new year on a great foot?
Yeah, I have advice, not just for coaches, but principals, because they are essential in this conversation, as well as district leaders and teacher leaders as well. So this is the whole community within a school, but there are some targeted moves that coaches can certainly take early in the school year to just set themselves up with a really solid foundation to build from as the year progresses. And we created this new resource guide, which I'm super excited about. It kind of almost just had to be done because what happened is we're out, our team supports about 75 school districts right now. And over and over and over again, we were hearing this concern about, well, what do the first few weeks of school look like? In fact, I was in Iowa yesterday with someone else on this call right now, doing some work in Iowa. And that was, of course, the question that a team of coaches called me over to their table and said, yeah, but what do those first few weeks look like? And so we started thinking about Harry Wong's book, The First Few Weeks, First Days of School. Mm-hmm. And for those of us who've been in education a while, that was kind of a seminal book to help a teacher construct a classroom that was ready, that all the little things you do early in the year. And so we decided, well, why not create a resource? It's not necessarily a book. It's much more of a playbook style resource with 15 moves for helping coaches launch those, essentially what would occur in that first month. And so the first phase is building relationships, obviously. Now you might have relationships, you might have a new principal, and that's the relationship you want to build. You might be a new coach to a new school. You might be a first-time coach, an experienced coach. So this isn't limited to just new coaches. It's everybody needs to remember to really build that foundation of relationships. And then we kind of move toward intentional planning with the principal. So getting clear on the role of the coach, helping get on the same page with your principal around who should be coached, when should we start with people, how are we going to organize this work, how are we going to measure our impact, things like that. And then we move into the third kind of phase, which is messaging and marketing coaching, and thinking about how do we communicate to channel Simon Sinek why coaching matters, first of all, and then how can you engage as a teacher, so that we're really thinking about broad-based, authentic engagement, not just coaching a couple teachers in a school, but building a culture for coaching where folks have lots of entry points in and out of the work that are relevant and meaningful to them. And so we've kind of channeled my, minor in business and really thinking about marketing the work. How do we communicate what this is, why it matters, what it looks like? And then lastly, really building toward launching coaching cycles. So there's this foundation building, this gradual build that occurs to really plan out each part of the start to the year. And then each of these moves includes some really nice conversation points for coaches and principals to have together. So that's that principal partnership. And so it's this idea that, well, what are the things we need to be talking about when it comes to who do we engage and how do we engage them and what's the role and how do I build relationships? And so that's kind of how we're supporting coaches to start the year. And there's one last thing I just want to mention that I think is really fascinating is with the disruptions this year, there has been a lot of conversations in schools about classroom management and student disruptions in classrooms. And, I don't want to dismiss that that's, an exaggeration or something. It's real. And so one piece of this relationship building aspect that we're tackling is how do we help teachers build relationships with their students? So students have a sense of belonging. So there's clear rituals and routines in classrooms so that we have high levels of engagement right out of the gate that we then can build on as we progress into deeper coaching work. And that's, to me, an equity-based practice, but it's also just, it's very much about that if kids don't feel loved and cared for in classrooms, they're never gonna kind of do the work that teachers are hoping they'll do for, as learners.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really liked how you kind of split that up into phases, because sometimes parts of those phases are often forgotten, and it's important to think about kind of each of those discrete steps. And I know we're excited to kind of hear more about like the moves of what happens in those different stages. Something that I know that you mentioned is as part of one of those stages is launching those coaching cycles. So we know that coaching cycles are a huge part of student-centered coaching, and just wanting to get your thoughts about, this new year, this refresh, like how are coaching cycles fitting in kind of this universe of instructional coaching?
Yes, that's such a good question. Well, and one thing just just a bit of clarification is that term coaching cycles is used by a lot of different models for coaching. So I just want to kind of point out that Jim's referring to coaching cycles as impact cycles, which is a different process than we use in student-centered coaching cycles. I think which kind of coaching cycle works for you depends on your purpose for coaching and what kind of outcomes you're looking for with your coaching work. So I just want to kind of mention that our take on coaching cycles is different than what Jim described, because he did such a nice deep dive into his structure for coaching cycles. And there's tons of information on our social media spaces about how we look at, and in our books about coaching cycles. And I can certainly answer questions about that if folks have questions. But what we found during COVID specifically was really hesitancy for coaches to do a lot of full coaching cycles. Some still rocked it and really overcame the odds and still did amazing full coaching cycles. But others found that when they were being pulled to sub so often, or teachers were being pulled out or getting sick, and I mean, all of that was happening. So what we did is we introduced mini coaching cycles as an alternative structure, which are shorter in duration, still focused on student learning, still focused on co-assessing students, being in classrooms as coaches, but not as big of a commitment by teachers. So now just to point out, we have two kinds of coaching cycles. But what we're hoping is for this year for us to get back to full coaching cycles, meaning 4 to 6 weeks in duration, aligned with a unit of study. The impact is measured. So we measure based on growth by the teacher as well as growth by the students in terms of proficiency to the standards. So that got lost. And so when we think about launching the year, we really want to set ourselves up to not still be dwelling in the, I can't do coaching cycles. We have to get back there. So that's kind of, I guess, where we're coming in. I think systems, if I was a school board member, I would be questioning, is coaching making an impact on student learning and teacher learning? I think that's a question we all need to be asking. And so that's one major reason we want to help coaches set themselves up to get themselves more back into full coaching cycles, because they are deeper and more measurable.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing kind of that differentiation of those different cycles, really outlining, doing what's best for the school districts and kind of like the outcomes that they want to do and what aligns with the work that they have. Do you have any other, and I want to get to some questions in the chat, so just a reminder to drop your questions for Diane in there. But what other advice do you have for coaches going into this year? What little drops of wisdom can you drop for us during our time today?
I think one is just for coaches to truly, I'm kind of just thinking about the language here, to truly understand how to be asset-based and how to build partnerships with teachers that are not judgmental and not necessarily, this is how I would do what you're trying to do, and not evaluative. And that is, I think, especially for newer coaches, I think one of the biggest fears coaches carry with them is this feeling that they have to be the experts and that they have to have all the answers. And so we're always trying to remind coaches that it's really about being a co-thinker. It's really about being a thinking partner. It's about trying to uncover options for how to meet the needs of students together as a partnership. It could be a pair, it could be a team. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility in how coaches can organize their work. And I love a team coaching cycle because it's just another way to build collective efficacy, to really have a team coming together around their work with their coach. I think, so there's that kind of just being okay with being a thinking partner, and that's rigorous, and that it's not about telling people how to do things. I think another big area that we really want coaches to be comfortable in is just the act of questioning, and to be okay with, and that really goes side by side with being a thinking partner, with the fact that you can drive with questions just as well as you can drive with answers. And so when we think big picture about student-centered coaching, we are very focused on this idea of partner and co-assessor. And we're very focused on coach spending a lot of time in the classroom. But when you go into a classroom, when a coach is in there, you can't tell the difference. It's not as if one person's up modeling a lesson and another one's watching and trying to copy what that person did. It's about, let's listen to kids. Let's kid watch. Let's notice a name is the term we use for that. Let's think aloud together and have moments together where we pull off to the side and we say, oh my gosh, they're getting it. Or, oh, this one small group needs a little nudge. Can we do that together? So the time in classrooms is so vitally important. And if I was a principal, I would say my coach needs to be in the classroom a lot of the time. I want to see that on a coach's calendar. If they're not, then I need to help that coach by being an advocate and by making sure that coach is positioned to be doing that deeper, classroom embedded coaching. So those are a few things. And the last thing, I think I got to spend some time yesterday in the past few days with a colleague, Jenny Donahue, who does a lot of work with collective efficacy. And she and I were working together on this notion of mastery and mastery moments and the power of building collective efficacy by naming your successes. And you have to assess to be able to do that. You have to be looking and listening to kids and seeing the growth happening. But to say, to begin to really name those moments of mastery experiences, then that turns into vicarious learning experiences where teachers are hearing of the success of others, and then they're able to say, oh, I can do that too. And so it's so much about a culture of learning. And there are certainly tactical moves we make as coaches, but it's all it's all underneath the umbrella of building a culture of learning, which is why the principal is a huge piece. We cannot do it without partnerships with the principal.
Thanks again for, continuing to just give us that advice. And I know everybody here is really looking forward to starting the new year fresh and kind of putting all of your advice to action. I do have some questions from the chat. We love to think of like in an ideal world, and oftentimes we don't live in the ideal world, but yeah. If I was a coach and I'm having like the perfect day ever, what does my instructional coaching look like that day? What does my typical day look like? What would you recommend for coaches to how to structure their day?
Yes. So we recommend, that's a great question. And it's common because you go from being a teacher where you have a highly structured day literally handed to you. This is your schedule, to a very unstructured role, which is not always comfortable as we think about how do we do our work and make an impact at the same time. So I always recommend thinking about your schedule as, and this is kind of a metaphor that's kind of fun to think about, like you're going to physical therapy. So Jim and I share this trait. We crash on bikes and break things. So I broke my leg like 3 years ago, and I had to obviously go to physical therapy. And so my physical therapist, we had an obvious goal, which was for me to be able to walk again and be athletic again. And that was just the healing process. That was my goal. So the physical therapist says to me, you're going to have to, this is going to take this long. We're going to have this many sessions. We're going to work on these things, and we're going to measure our growth. And measuring growth was was literally concrete measurement of, my leg and how it was working. So if we think about applying that concept to coaching, scheduling coaching, what we're doing is we're scheduling around the goal, right? So the goal for us typically is something academically focused. So it would be, I want my students to be able to solve ratios, solve real world problems using their understanding of ratios. So you've got something like that as your goal. Well, that's going to take probably about a unit duration to reach. So when I schedule that, what I need to be thinking about, and this goes to what does a coach's day or week look like in a second, but when I schedule that, I need to be thinking, all right, I'll be in that teacher's classroom a few times a week, and we'll be co-planning a few times a week. And if this is a team, then I'll be in each of their classrooms every week. So that takes a chunk of time. So it's so much more helpful to think about scheduling, like we call them coaching cycle rounds. So I've got, let's say, 4 coaching cycles going at once, starting October 1st. I'm going to be then working my schedule to be in those, might be 5 teachers, those 5 teachers' classrooms, and have planning time with those 5 teachers each week. But then what happens is your schedule, when that phase ends, when those cycles wrap up, which typically be when the ratios unit ends, then I'm going to relaunch my coaching cycles, get a different group of folks, kind of like a physical therapist. But now I have a different set of clients because those folks reached their goal. So now I got to figure out a schedule where I can get in those folks' rooms and those. So it's a fluid process. I can't say a week looks the same. And even the first week of school is going to look very different than a week in October, which would look very different than a week during testing season. But what we recommend is about 60% of a coach's time is in either mini or full coaching cycles. And then the rest of their time might be filled with things like going to PLCs or meeting with the principal or planning and delivering some professional learning or informal support, maybe support with classroom management. So we shoot for a 60-40 split, 60% of the time in cycles, and then 40% of the time doing that other work. But that's not going to be happening on the first day of school. That's why we're really helping with what those first weeks look like to get you to the point when you can have a schedule that represents 60% of your time in coaching cycles.
I'm seeing something come in from the chat right now that actually got my attention of advice for how coaches can attain a collaborative relationship in a secondary setting where maybe that the teacher that they're supporting, maybe that content area isn't that coach's specialty. And what advice do you have for cultivating that relationship and really, that first step of, or that first phase of relationship building? What are some moves that a coach can do in that situation?
Yeah, that's true, not just in secondary, by the way, because you might have taught 4th grade and you've never taught kindergarten and you're now coaching in a kindergarten class. So that is a broad, it always comes up from secondary folks, but it is a broadly applied question. I think that the emphasis we put with student-centered coaching on student evidence and co-assessing is major for that. So I don't necessarily need to be delivering a lesson in calculus, right? I don't know how to teach calculus. I don't think I ever took calculus. I avoided that. But that idea of coach modeling or observing to give feedback based on how that teacher's delivering content is not our model. So it becomes less of an issue. When our model is very much about co-assessing and listening to kids and seeing how they're engaging as learners with student evidence, then we are, like I said, a thinking partner with teachers. So we'll be looking at a stack of student exit slips with one problem and thinking with teachers, what trends are you seeing here? What might we do to move these students along? I'm picking up on a couple kids who are, showing this way. So what about our linguistically diverse students? How are we going to serve them? Oh, what about our students who might have other needs? So there's a really amazing video in the Moves, student-centered coaching, the Moves, where it's a high school math teacher being coached from she's the curriculum and instruction director as well as coach. She's not a math person. She doesn't have a math background. She had a social studies background as a teacher. And she's coaching this teacher to unpack how is he going to support this one student, Roberto, to be able to solve multi-step, really challenging math problems related, I don't know, it was like a 12-step problem. And there were breakdowns happening in this. And so they were able to navigate through that together. So I just think if we focus more on student evidence and more on the assessment and how our kids demonstrating their learning, we have a ton of value to add, whether or not we've ever taught that content.
Yeah, and thanks for that clarification as well of like, you kind of spoke about it earlier. A lot of the time coaches are coming right out of the classroom. And so that's such great advice to have for, all the coaches that are joining us today. We're getting a lot of questions kind of about like different resources that you may have and that you can share. I definitely will link some of the resources that we have available once we're done chatting, but something linked to one of the resources was going back to your conversation about like how principals and administrators are so vital in making sure that coaches are getting that time to really be impactful in the work that they're doing. And so people are wondering, do you have any resources or advice about, building that partnership with a principal or just getting that buy-in from other stakeholders about the importance of that instructional coaching?
Yeah, it's so important. We wrote a whole book on it called Leading Student-Centered Coaching, which actually was written because we just were finding that we were really skill building teams of coaches beautifully. And there would be situations over and over again where you had a highly skilled coach in a school without a partnership with their principal, and that their ability to make an impact was so limited by this lack of support. And so Joellen Killian calls it being the coach champion by the principal. I think about the principal as being a coach advocate. I saw a question. The title of the book is Leading Student-Centered Coaching, Amanda. That just popped on my screen. But a lot of that resource is far more than just supporting coaching. It's about leading your school, having a focused school improvement plan. A lot of coaches are coaching in environments where there are so many initiatives being thrown at them, especially now. It's like we're doing twice as much because we had 2 years with nothing. We've got to do less to get where we want to get. And so having a focused school improvement plan is highlighted. And then a coach can tack on to that, because let's give an example. We're all working on teacher clarity because it's a high effect size in Hattie's research. Okay, if that's our school focus, now a coach can build teacher clarity work into each and every coaching conversation. And so the principal coach partnership, it's certainly tactical. It's a weekly meeting. It's how do we talk about our coaching work? What are our norms for that? All of that's important. But even bigger picture is, what's our school improvement plan? How does a coach fit into that? How is a principal separating coaching from supervision? How is a principal making sure they're not asking the coach to do things that are viewed as evaluative, like walkthroughs, or, high stakes data team meetings where the coach is calling people out for their data being low? Or there's lots of ways that we can kind of jeopardize the role of the coach. And we just think of Folan's work, pressure and support. Change comes from having both in a healthy balance. So that's a resource, the Leading Student-Centered Coaching book. But honestly, we address the principal's role in coaching in every book. It's always positioned to be side by side with our conversations about coaches. Another couple resources on this one, we have a YouTube channel, and on there we have interviews with principals on how are they leading coaching. School spotlights, we have some of those in our blog where we'll have principals share their approach and highlight so I think hearing mastery experiences from principals with coaching is a super valuable resource.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm actually going to drop some of those resources that we've talked about and that you've shared with us in the chat for everybody. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. I wish we had more time, but as Lindsay said, time is in all of our roles kind of like the enemy. But it's such an honor and privilege to be able to talk to you today, and I'm gonna hand it over.
Thanks, Javi. Appreciate it.
Lindsay. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you both so much. Again, I think I speak for everyone when I say this is so energizing, and just, I feel so enthusiastic and so proud to be able to bring this to this group of folks and keep this going. So yes, thank you so much, Diane. Thank you so much, Javier, for engaging in that conversation. And once again, I think we're all sort of left with this sense of, what's next, or like, how can we keep having this conversation? And that was top of mind for me as we were planning for today. And we are so lucky and so honored that Diane Sweeney is actually going to be joining us on August 8th for an Ask Me Anything. If you're familiar with that sort of format, we have a KickUp community. It's a little kind of forum, social space for you and others in the field to connect. It's exclusively open to you right now. My colleague Kylie just put the link in the chat, and you can create a little account and quickly start engaging with others who are in this space right now today. You can be able to ask Diane anything on August the 8th and connect with each other beyond. So this exclusive community is available to members of the KickUp Lab attendees. And we're really excited for you all to keep this conversation going, keep talking, keep connecting. I think that we've all learned so much from Jim and so much from Diane, but you all have a lot to learn from each other. And Javier and Selena, who've been doing such a great job facilitating these conversations, are the ones cultivating this incredible community. So I'm excited to keep that going there.